Working towards retirement can be intimidating if you do not have a solid financial plan. Today's episode, we bring in a financial planner to simplify what steps you can take in order to be on the correct path towards retirement.
Are you a working professional but struggling to balance the workload of your career, family, obligations, and preparing for your financial future? If so, this podcast is for you. You've spent years learning your craft, and now it's time to focus on your financial future. This podcast will teach you what you need to retire wealthy and happy. Let's dive in.
Welcome to our podcast, Sam. This is the Retire Wealthy and Happy. We've known you for a few years, and we really want to just have a discussion, get to know you better. So you're a financial planner. You can do whatever you want in that industry. Why don't you tell us about yourself?
Yeah, I've been in the industry for about 7 years now. I went to Utah Valley University, and they have actually a program that's specifically for financial planning. It helps you get your CFP, Certified Financial Planning designation. So I went there and got my CFP. And then after that, did a bunch of different internships, got a job out of college, worked for somebody else for a little while. And then about 2 years ago, decided that I just kind of wanted to work for myself. So made the leap, and I've been working for myself ever since. And it's been awesome.
That's cool. How many clients are you working with right now?
I don't know the exact number. It's probably somewhere in the 40s to 50 ballpark.
Cool. Do you have any idea how many dollars you're working with?
Yeah. It's a good question. I mean, our firm manages about $30 million as a whole, and I'm a decent portion of that. So
very cool.
So Sam, we want to start by just talking about some specifics of financial planning. We're hoping that the listener that we have, we want to talk about all sorts of different financial investments, that type of thing, and the financial world is very difficult to navigate. So we personally think that having someone to guide you through it, especially if that's not what you studied in college, right? Or if that's not your occupation, that having somebody to guide you through that process. Tell me a little bit about why you think that's important.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's incredibly invaluable, especially like just seeing the work that I do with my clients. Finances are pretty complex, from the type of investments that you're investing in to the taxes. I mean, the tax code alone is huge, more than it's crazy. We have estate planning, we have cash flow. I mean, there's just so many different aspects of it. So having, I think, a professional, and not only a professional, but a plan in place that you're, committed to following, I think is super powerful.
Very, very good. There's a lot of different aspects, like you just touched about, taxes, insurance, retirement, wills and estates. Tell us what your favorite topic is and why why you enjoy that the most.
Yeah. For me, I would say it's got to be tax planning. And probably the biggest reason why is because it's easy to show your work, to show the results. I think sometimes people come in and they're looking maybe to invest some dollars, and it's, every financial advisor out there is going to say they're going to get good returns. So I think, and ultimately a lot of that's outside of my control anyway. The markets are going to do what they're going to do. Our investments are going to do what they're going to do. We do a good job to vet them out, but at the end of the day, they're going to do what they're going to do. But taxes is something that's very much so within our control. A couple of years ago, I had someone this was probably one of my beginning internships when I was back in college, but I was working with this financial planner, and he took some change out of his pocket, and one of them was a dime and one of them was a quarter. And the dime, he said, everyone's so focused on the dime, getting about that 10% rate of return every year, give or take. But if we focus on the quarter, minimizing that 25% roughly that goes towards taxes, if we compound that, say we cut that in half, we compound that over the lifetime, and then invest those, like that's millions of dollars of tax savings.
Yeah, that's incredible to even think about it from that perspective. Do you have a favorite tax strategy? I'm assuming that you probably don't do all the tax planning yourself. I'm assuming you probably work with a CPA with people, or is that not the case?
Yeah, so we have a CPA actually at our firm that we work with, but I don't work exclusively with her. But yeah, so I do taxes with her during tax season. I've really taken it upon myself to understand and to learn the tax code. And then we use obviously tax planning software and really just stay on top of our client situations. Every year towards the end of the year, we sit down with my clients and I input all their income, any deductions that they have, and figure out where their tax liability is going to be at and what tax moves might make sense. Just to share an example or two, let's think. I was working with this is just a really low hanging fruit that I think a lot of people probably know about, but working with a roofer this year. He was an LLC last year. We were able to help him convert to just be an S corporation. So changing the entity structure of his business. And that saved him some significant money in self-employment taxes. I think it saved him close to $25,000 in self-employment taxes. So just knowing and understanding your business, how you're structured, little things like that can really add up.
I've been to a lot of tax planning seminars myself, and there's a debate that rages on in the financial planning industry, whether you do an S corp, which is designed to basically save yourself self-employment tax, right? You pay yourself a small salary, and then you take the rest out as a capital gains distribution, usually at a lower tax rate. Versus, and I've heard people just rave about that's the one and only way that you should go. Versus operating a C corp, where you've basically insulated. You've got a complete separate business that's taxed separately. You can control when you get paid. At the end of the year. Which do you prefer, and why? Or does it individual situation?
I think it depends a lot on the goals of the business. Like, are you hoping to get acquired? How many employees do we want to have? How much control? Like, there's a lot that kind of goes into that. Do we want to be a pass-through entity versus, like you said, have a corporation that's taxed on its own? And there's benefits to both, and it really, I think, depends on the goals of the business and the individual who owns the business. But most of my clients, I would say, are smaller shops, individuals, solo, or just have a few employees. So probably most of them are S corps, but the C corp can certainly make sense.
Okay.
Very cool. What's your favorite investment strategy? Stocks, bonds, real estate, what?
It's a good question. And I think my answer is going to be different than a lot of mainstream financial advice. I think there's a lot of value in focusing on investing in yourself. I think you are definitely the best investment, especially when you're young. But, before you go and jump into investing in different products or in the market or different things, invest in yourself. I think some of the most productive and wealthiest people that can really retire comfortably that I've been able to work with and see, they either have one of two things. They have a high income, or they have assets that are growing in value, whether that be a business or real estate. And I think it's funny because I think we understand this inherently when we're young. We go to school, K through 12, then we go to college, we get degrees. But then a lot of people, after they graduate, they stop investing in themselves. They take all their extra money, put it in a retirement account, and just spend on themselves, their monthly spending, and don't continue to invest in yourself. And I just think they're missing out on such a huge, huge opportunity. That developing yourself continually is so, so powerful. And, if you have a really high income, that you've built up over time, you're going to have a lot of extra dollars that you can put in different places. Or, if you have assets like real estate or a business that you've grown, like, we can sell that down the road and leverage that. And that can be a huge value. So that's just kind of what I've seen.
Yeah, I was listening to a podcast with Bridger Pennington on it yesterday, and his value in investing himself was in masterminds and networking.
Yeah.
And it was almost 300,000 in the last 2 years.
Sheesh. That's cool. That's way cool. I was thinking about like the value of investing in yourself, and I kind of threw together some numbers. So let's just take for a second the average person graduating college. Say they make $50,000 coming out of college. That's somewhat average for America in general. I kind of threw together some numbers. I said, okay, someone takes their salary and they grow it by 3% a year, which is about average. Most people get a little bump every year, versus someone who just increases their salary by 10% a year. What would be the difference? So they both start at 50,000. After 5 years, the one that makes 3% a year increase is at 56,000 of annual income, versus the one that has a 10% increase every year has a $73,000. So you can see after just 5 years, you're making close to $17,000 in difference. After 10 years, you're making close to $52,000 more. After 20 years, you're making over $200,000 more every single year that we can take and invest and put in different places. And after 30 years of compounded growth of 3% versus that 10% compounded salary growth, you're making close to $700,000 difference, which is crazy. That 3% after 50 years would be $117,000 annual salary, where that 10% growth every year would be $793,000 in income. So it really adds up, and it's powerful.
Yeah, compounding interest is really a interesting topic. The analogy that I've seen most powerful was one that it's in old stories, but it's a piece of rice doubled for every piece of the checkerboard or chessboard.
Yeah.
And when you get one piece of rice on the first piece, on the first block, and then double it each piece, by the time you get to the end of the checkerboard, it's more rice than has ever been grown in the world.
Wow.
So 64 times doubled is more powerful than has ever been done ever.
Yeah, it's mind-boggling. Like you can't even understand it, but it's powerful.
So after investing in yourself, what is your second favorite investing strategy?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. When it comes to like straight investing, I would say I'm a big fan of real estate. Most of my clients are real estate investors. And so therefore, I think real estate's powerful in a lot of different ways. I mean, just in general with real estate, we can take an asset, let's just say a single family house that's worth $500,000, and we can put $100,000 down. So 1/5 of that or 20% of that, and get that appreciation of the full asset of $500,000 using leverage, but only have to put 100,000. Or if you're like, willing to house hack or do the nomad strategy where you live in the house for a year and then move out and turn it into an investment, you could even put 5% down, $25,000 on a $500,000 property. You get those appreciation of that whole asset while not having to put all that money or all that capital into it, which I think is, incredibly powerful.
Yeah, we use the IDEAL acronym a lot. Yeah. So IDEAL. So income, depreciation, equity, appreciation, and leverage, like you talked about.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's why I love real estate, because there's so many different aspects of it that makes it so attractive.
Very cool.
So Sam, what do you think is more important? The debate is, hey, let's go find that ideal investment, right? Crypto was a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Right. Real estate's been the vogue for the last 10 years, but prior to that, it was the ugly stepsister of investing, right? There's times that stocks and bonds are. What do you think is more important? Is it finding the right investment at the right time, or is it starting early?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think both are extremely valued, so I don't want to discount either one. But I think from my perspective, time, you just let that compounding interest or compounding curve really take place when you allow time. It's one of our most, greatest assets. So yeah, I would say time, and I don't discount getting the right investment, because we certainly want to do that. But if you can start from a young age and you can be a good saver, live within your means and save and invest in a smart way. I mean, those are all important things, but that time is, I think, from my perspective, one of the most important things.
I use an analogy sometimes when we talk, and you comment a little bit on this, but if you started at age 20 and you wanted to have $1 million by the time you hit 60, I think it's $140 a month that you could put aside.
Not crazy.
And if you wait until you're 30, I think it goes to like $350. If you wait until you're 40, it's $1,000, and by the time you're 50, it's like $3,500 a month to get that same million. It's unbelievable how simple it is if we can start early and go from there. I want to take a second and talk about 3 different situations. Take a younger, somebody just out of college, 20, they don't have to have gone to college, but young, about college age, and talk about how you would help that person get started. Then think about somebody who was, in their 40s, and they were looking to get started, because I'm assuming there'd be different strategies. And then somebody who's close to retirement, and a different type of a strategy that you would incorporate for each one of those 3.
Yeah. So with my clients, I typically do like an upfront financial plan for them, kind of help them get strategy in place. With a younger person, I don't know if either one of you ever read the book Atomic Habits.
I have not.
I have, yeah.
Yeah. One of my favorite quotes from that book, he says, "You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems." So I think, especially for young people, if we can set up systems, that are going to ensure success, we're going to be fine. I mean, I think a lot of people have, big goals to accomplish a lot of great things, but they don't have the systems in place, then none of them are going to happen. So, with someone young, I'm probably going to start kind of some of what I've talked about today, but we're going to start probably with their income. What can we do to increase your income, or to acquire assets? Like look at your company's benefit package. Are we missing out on any bonuses? Can we get a master's degree and increase your income? I actually had a client who was in the medical field. Well, not exactly in the medical field, but he does management of like medical. And he went and got his master's degree. He literally 4x'd his income, like 400% increase in income. Like imagine that. Oh. Like can we improve efficiencies to increase your income? Do we need to make a career change? So that's typically where I'd start with someone young, like if they have businesses, how are we structured? Then from that cash flow perspective, like setting up a cash flow system, those systems are so powerful, but setting up a system where we're putting money in the right places. Are we investing in ourselves, or do we have an education bucket every time that we're putting into? Do we have, if you have kids, are we setting aside for things that are important for them, like a wedding or college, or, just different things that they might be important for them? Do we have enough reserves set aside? Do we need to build that up? And ultimately, kind of like you said, like start young, start putting aside for the long term, just $140 a month or whatever you said, close to $1 million when you go to retire. So starting a cash flow system, putting money in the right places and investing it, having that investment strategy is probably where I start. With someone that's young, someone that's in their middle aged, I'll probably bring them in and kind of look at their current assets, figure out where they're at. And then just figure out, are we saving enough and investing enough to retire? Where are we from that standpoint? Normally, someone in their middle age has more going on. So we'll look a lot more into tax planning, right? What can we do to minimize taxes and reinvest those dollars to put them towards, your goals? And someone probably in their older, obviously retirement's going to be big on your mind. So like, is there enough to retire? what kind of lifestyle income do we want in retirement? What kind of investments do we have? What kind of risk can we take or should we take based off your time horizon? If they're wealthy, like we're looking at estate planning issues, like not to pay estate taxes. And I think this kind of plays into like tax diversification. I think there's advantageous to have money in all three buckets. There's a taxable bucket. That's just like a brokerage account. There's a tax deferred. That's like a 401k. And then there's tax free, which is like a Roth IRA or HSA. And I think there's value in getting money in all three buckets. And depending on what bracket you're in and where your income's at, we may look to convert, or if the market's dipped a bunch and we expect it to rebound, we may look to convert some of that deferred money into tax-free money to help to minimize taxes in retirement.
What have you done as far as your own investing strategy?
For me, I try to follow what I preach. So my best investment ultimately is my business, right? And my income earning ability. So that's where most of my focus goes. But ultimately after that, the goal for me and my wife is to, start acquiring real estate properties. I follow kind of what I preach, and I have enough in short-term reserves. I have a longer-term bucket with, a Roth IRA that I'm converting to or contributing to, an HSA to get some of those tax benefits that we've talked about. So, in general, though, just staying diversified, investing in myself ultimately.
How have you invested in yourself?
Yeah. So when I first started in college, they don't teach you how to sell, right? Sell yourself, sell your services. And I was kind of struggling with that when I first went out on my own and started my business. So I actually hired a coach, and it was, at that time, it was probably 3 months worth of income for me to hire him, but he helped me a lot to be able to, just not that my services changed at all, but just to explain them in a way and sell them in a way that people could understand and would want to buy them. So that's one way early on that I invested in myself, and I continue to do that to this day.
Who did you hire?
His name is Simon. I have to look up his last name. Simon. What's his last name? He has a podcast out there. He works with a lot of financial advisors, so probably not a lot of people would know him. He more works with the financial advisors. But
are you with him still, or you have a new coach?
No, I have a new coach now. I work with one of the people I work with. He has like a mastermind every month. His name's Carl Richards. He's an awesome one.
What are you investing in on your strategies for just income?
For income for me, or for
your wealth?
My wealth. Yeah, like I mentioned, me and my wife, we have a plan to kind of, I don't know if you're familiar with the nomad strategy, where like you buy a house, you live in it for a year, maybe you rent out the basement, maybe you don't, if it's just a single family house. But that's kind of our plan, is to buy one house a year, live in it, move on. So that's kind of in the works right now. And then just having a diversified mix in my retirement is really what
I'm very familiar with that. I have an Airbnb in my basement. And so I get to deal with all the not so popular parts of it. So last night the police were here.
Oh, no.
And the people that are staying there are employees of a large concrete company.
Yeah.
They're out of Texas.
Yeah.
And so they drove concrete trucks from Texas to my house. So they have big barrel concrete trucks. These are specialty concrete trucks that are 4-wheel drive, like 10 wheels, but all wheels are giving traction.
Yeah.
And they're too big to be on my street. So the police want them to go. And I'm like, well, where do you want them to go? Like, this is their vehicle that they drove from Texas, and this is where they're staying. So it was not fun, but the dogs that stay here and the concrete trucks and everything else adds to the, entertainment of life. Not all it's cracked up to be, for sure.
Yeah, that's hilarious. Yeah. definitely.
Really quickly before we move on to the kind of the final four questions, you touched on house hacking, and I've always told my kids that if they wanted to get started, they should probably buy a duplex or a fourplex so they could start. You can get a 95% FHA loan, right?
Yeah.
So you've maximized leverage.
Yeah.
You fix up the side you live in. When the person next to you moves out, you move into that one, rent the one out for much higher, and so on and so forth. If you could do that 5 times in the, in 5 years, or maybe it takes you 6 years to do it, you could literally pay cash for your first home. Just with the appreciation value add that you could do on 3 or 4. So that idea of house hacking, or using your own home or whatever, it adds incredible value over the long term, and gets people started. Everybody wants to start with investing in multifamily. It sounds glamorous, but it takes a little bit. It takes a little bit of preparation and whatever. So anyway.
It really is the low hanging fruit, I think. And like if you say what you're gonna do, or do what you're saying of getting 5 houses, even if you do nothing else after that, just let those houses pay themselves down. Like in retirement, you're gonna be sitting pretty happy.
All right. Hey, thanks, man. Roger, you want to hit the 4 questions? I can't read that, but
read that.
Time for the final 4. Yes, it is. Thank you.
All right, Sam. What is your favorite book?
I have a lot of favorite books, but recently I read the book The Wealthy Gardener, and I really like that one.
That is right here.
There's just so many nuggets in that book. Like a lot of people in the real estate space, they talk about Rich Dad, Poor Dad, but I feel like this is like Rich Dad, Poor Dad on steroids. Like just so many good nuggets.
It's a good book. What do you do for happiness? What's your hobby or your thing that you do?
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately I like to keep a even keel, a good perspective. Like to keep my faith, my family, my friends, those relationships around me as high a priority as I can. But even beyond that, I just like to have fun. Like I love snowmobiling. We're in Utah. We've got a great snow year. My family has a boat. We go down boating to Lake Powell every year, and Bear Lake and all the different lakes. So just love to have fun, get outdoors and do fun, different things. So
cool. I joke around a lot about retirement, and for me, like retirement isn't going to be catching up on Oprah reruns. What does retirement look like for you?
Yeah, for me, I actually came across a quote a while ago. It's create a life that I don't want to retire from. And I like that a lot. Like I want to be able to create a business that I enjoy so much that I never want to retire, which I think I'm doing. And that just gives me so much, flexibility and down the road as well. But ultimately just flexibility and control in my schedule now and down the road when I want to retire, I think is going to be super powerful. So I think for me, it looks like, not a set date of retirement or a time when I'm doing all these like sitting on a beach or anything, but just having flexibility and control of my schedule to do fun things now and throughout my entire life, and also love what I do in my work.
By the way, Roger, you guys are both quite a bit younger than I am. Oprah's looking pretty good for me at my age. So,
I love Oprah, but I'm not trying to sit on the couch for like the rest of my life. I think you had a good point there, Sam. And my theory too is I'd like to be able to tell the electricians and plumbers what to do from the beach.
Yeah, that's the way to do it.
What's your best way of giving back?
For me, I think it's probably teaching people skills that'll help them, that they can implement, that'll make their life better. They always say like teach a man or give a man a fish, feed him for a day, teach a man how to fish,
I love
feed
that
him for
line.
a lifetime. So
that's my favorite line. Teach a man to fish.
Well, Sam, thank you so much. We've enjoyed having you today. I really believe our listeners got quite a bit out of what you've had to share. We would encourage them to, if anybody has any questions, looking for a financial planner, that type of thing, tell us how they could get a hold of you.
Yeah. We have our website, vitalitycap.com. You can find more information on there. You could also email me, sam@vitalitycap.com, and connect with me there. So I'm also on LinkedIn. Connect with me there as well.
And we'll put that in the show notes as well.
Awesome.
Thanks so much for joining us on the Retire Wealthy and Happy podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right. Hey, thanks, man.
Hope you got value from this episode. And if you have a minute, then take the time to leave an honest written review for the podcast, because we take those reviews seriously and it'll help us serve you better on the next episodes. And most importantly, be sure to start taking action so you can control your financial future today.